Humpbacks are amazing, and we now have a famous humpback in our midst, and apparently about 200 other humpbacks right outside New York for some reason. And they're super intelligent, super intelligent. Probably a lot more than us. Big brains. Some Native Americans say they're from the constellation Sirius, which you can look up. Constellation. But they have control over their bodies. They can, if they get an injury, they can shut off the blood with their brain, which we can't do very well. Yogis, maybe, right? They can heat up parts of their bodies that are cold with their brain. They can shut their lungs down if they need to meditate. They can fast for weeks without food. They go around the world.
Follow their lead a little bit more.
Yeah, we can.
And then we might live a little bit longer.
Well, they're planetary citizens for sure because they'll go all around the world with no trouble. So we don't have whales in the lake, but they make a fountain out like that out of the top of their head.
Yes, the spout, yeah.
Have a blowhole. Okay, so anyway, the Kanondakan Trail actually goes to the edge of this lake. This lake is a reservoir, which means it's artificially made to store water to drink, and it's for years been called the Croton Reservoir.
Croton.
And now they named it after Jack Onassis or something.
Who?
Jack Onassis.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can't really tie her into this talk. But Croton Reservoir, anybody know what Croton means?
Croton, guys.
Croton, is it what?
I know Croton on the Hudson,
Right,
but I'm trying
so
to get
it's
I'm trying to get a clue from what that.
Right.
Okay. If you can't be together and not talk, then you need to separate. Because you're not going to talk over us. Thank you.
Except in Dutch. So, okay, so listen, there's a town called Croton. It's on the Metro North. Okay. So, named after Chief Croton, only that wasn't his real name. His real name was originally Kanoten, which means the wind blows through his hair. He must have been quite a character. Wind blows.
Everything has all these, like, really cute meanings and stuff. You know?
Yeah, that's very picturesque, right? So Kanoten, wind blows his hair, and so they changed it to Croton because there was a town in Italy called Croton that they knew, and a very spiritual place, a spiritual pilgrimage place, going back to Pythagoras. So I thought, oh, it's a very spiritual thing. All these Native Americans are very spiritual, like Pythagoras. So we'll call it Croton in his honor, to honor them. But then they changed Kanoten to Croton. Well, they called him Chief Croton, or the Sachem Croton, for a while. And what happened was they built a big fort over at Croton, and on the Hudson, and for the natives. Then when the British came, they didn't want the British to invade. They didn't want them here. And so when they attacked, you know, they were fighting, and Chief Croton was on the top, standing on the top of this big fort, and they set it on fire. And the story is that he jumped in to the flames, so he didn't want to hear the British saying, "Yay, we won." And so he pronounced a curse on the British, and he said, as he's falling down, this is somewhat legendary, but as he's falling into the fire, he yells out that, you know, the Great Spirit will drive you from this land, you British so-and-sos.
And it came true.
And it came true. What happened was later, well, they buried everybody there in a burial ground, right? And then later, this British lord built his mansion right on top of the graves and the fort, okay? And they say that all the ghosts came up and marched around his house every night. Unhappy ghosts. They call them the walking sachems of Croton, by the way.
Oh, Jesus.
So this was named after him indirectly. So it was Croton's Reservoir.
And I guess Croton on the Hudson also was named after him.
It was named after him.
Yeah.
Very famous sachem. And he's the one. So what happened was, the story was that the man living in this mansion went out to talk to the ghosts. Because they were there every night marching around. So he went out, and Chief Croton himself, as a ghost, no, I can't prove this is true, but this is what the story is, came to him and said, you know, you're stepping on our people here. You build a house on our grave sites and our fort.
Because it was sacred ground.
It was sacred ground. And I think that you should rise up and join us in fighting back the British. Well, that man, the Revolutionary War came up, and that man said, yeah, I can get rid of these ghosts and beat back the British.
I can get rid of the ghosts too.
He joined the American army.
Two for the price of one,
and was very successful. And the Americans won the revolution against the British. And so Chief Croton went back into his realm in the underworld, or wherever he was, spirit world, and left him alone. So now we have, you know, long story though about that.
That water.
But that water has been called Croton Reservoir. And most people still think it's called Croton Reservoir, and that's probably what it should be.
I call it the reservoir.
The reservoir, good, because for you, that's your reservoir. So that's where drinking water comes from. So you wouldn't want to put trash in there, right? You wouldn't not want to put garbage in there. But the Dutch colonists kept doing that. They kept having these ponds and pools for their drinking water, and
then
they
just
put all
get it
kinds
poisoned.
of toxic stuff in it. And guess what? They'd get sick, and they had to close it all down. They had to shut all those things down. So all they had left was an Indian spring called Laughing Springs. And they called it that because it had healing waters in it that actually made you feel so good that you just wanted to laugh. And so then what happened, they pushed the Indians away and they put a fence around it, started pumping it with a pumping machine and sold it for a lot of money for tea water. And then those people made huge amounts of money, and that's where the banks of New York all started.
No.
From